Hi, I'm Roland Beard and I'm from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I've been teaching low brass lessons for around 30 years now. And throughout my years of teaching, I've had a number of techniques that have worked really well to have a very successful low brass student. I am a euphonium player primarily, but I also teach trombone and tuba and play those as well. Some of the things I'd like to talk about can best be described using a warm-up technique. I always talk about a warm-up technique with my first lesson with all my students. So I'll talk through what I usually use and explain as a warm-up technique. The first thing that I always do when I talk about a warm-up technique is the first step is to do long tones. Now when I talk about long tones, I always talk about using an open tone on the instrument. It's very important to play with a big, full, rich, open tone to have a good low brass sound. So I'm going to do a demonstration, and I'm going to first demonstrate a closed tone, and I will go into what I call an open tone. This will be a low B flat to start with. So here's a closed tone. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into an open tone. Closed tone, open tone. I hear so many of the young students that are just beginning play with a kind of a closed, tight tone. So the techniques that I use and describe to help open up the tone is as followed. The first thing that I say is make sure you spread your teeth wide open as you can possibly spread. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that same low B flat, and I'm going to start with a closed teeth. I'm just going to spread my teeth apart and listen to what happens to my sound. As you can hear, when I just spread my teeth apart, that my sound opened up very nicely. The other thing I talk about when we're talking about playing with an open tone is playing with little tension. What I mean by that is you want to push your lips together as lightly as possible. So when I play that low B flat, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use some tension with my lips, and all I'm going to do is I'm not going to change anything. All I'm going to do is just release some of the tension and listen to what happens to my sound. So here's tension. So all I did was reduce how hard I'm pushing my lips together and very lightly touch my lips together. I like to use the technique where I have the student put their finger out and I put my finger on top of theirs and show how much you push down for some tension, and I just barely touch my fingers on their finger to say that's the light tension or light touch you want to use on your lips, and it makes a big difference in the sound. The third thing that I use is I talk about the lip position, or I'm sorry, the tongue position. The tongue position has to be, especially in the low range, in an ah position. If you look in the mirror and you say ah, if you look at the back of the tongue, it's got a curve to it. So I'm going to just demonstrate. I'm going to use everything the same with my open teeth. I'm going to use a little bit of tension. All I'm going to do is go from an E tongue to an ah tongue and listen to what difference it makes in my sound. So here's an E tongue. Now I'm going to go back and forth from an E to an ah. Listen to what it does to my sound. And once I get the concept to that student, how important it is to have that open throat. They talk about open throat, but I mostly just talk about the tongue position. I actually show them what my tongue looks like in the back. It's got a gurn, it's got a curve to it. I always use the analogy, if you go to a doctor and you say ah at the doctor, it opens up the throat so the doctor can look down your throat. Then once they get that concept down, then I always talk about playing the long tones and going two notes primarily. I usually start with an F down to a B flat, and I say just play the F, hold it out, and let the note fall down to the B flat. And when you go down lower, make sure you open up a little more. So I'm just going to demonstrate that. So here's open sound, F to B flat. Now I'm going to go E to A natural. And just keep going down the line. Here's third position, E flat to A flat, D to G, D flat to G flat, and F, D to F, or C to F. Once they start getting successful at that, I tell them to make sure you always spend quite a bit of time just doing your long tones to get that concept down and really get a good sound in their ear. And you have to be able to demonstrate to your student to be able to show what a good sound sounds like. So again, I'm going to show you what open sound, what closed sound is like, and then I'm going to go into an open sound and listen to the difference. So I'm just going to play a little bit of a scale using closed sound. Now I'm going to just open up my sound. Same scale on a B flat, starting with a low B flat. Same thing, closed sound. An open sound. It's extremely important that the student understand what a good sound sounds like, and then they can try to achieve that sound if you can demonstrate that. Once they spend some time doing the open tones, then I like to move into the next warm-up routine, which is using lip slurs. Now, lip slurs is a very specific technique that I talk about that I have found has had great success with my students. When I talk about the lip slurs, I really emphasize the lip pivot. So what you're doing is with the bottom lip, it actually pivots a little bit in when the note goes up, and the lip pivots back out when the note goes back down. So I'll just demonstrate like going from an F up to a B flat doing a lip slur. And then what happens is as I do that, my bottom lip is doing this. It's a very slight adjustment pulling in, and the note should pop. And then I like to expand the range, and then I start going a little bit higher. And then I really try to make a good impression. I try to do some of the higher notes so they can hear how well that technique works to getting a high range. And once they hear that you can be successful, just all I'm doing when I'm doing that high range pivoting, bottom lip makes that note go higher and back and forth. The second thing that I always emphasize when I'm talking about playing successful lip slurs and also using some of the high range techniques is I talk about a buzz spot. What I mean by that is when you play trombone, baritone, tuba, whatever, there's a very, very precise spot on your lip that you can feel where the buzz is actually happening. So I call that the buzz spot. Most people think that the whole lip behind the mouthpiece is buzzing. That's not true. There's actually a very precise area that produces the buzz to make the sound. I always say that my buzz spot is a little bit right of center. I always put my finger here and show them that this is where it's at. And then I say, can you find your buzz spot? And then I say, play an F. And as you're playing that note, see if you can focus in and find out, see where that buzz spot is. Now, the reason I do that is because when I'm starting to do some of my fast lip slurs, for example, I'm going to do the B flat to D lip slur, I'm going to move my lip, but I'm only going to focus on very precisely on the buzz spot. And what I say is there's a popping sensation, or you can feel a pressure change that's happening as the note's going back and forth. Now, as I'm doing that, again, I say I can feel right here, it's a popping sensation that occurs. If I'm doing that lip slur technique correctly, the note goes back and forth. Then I talk about as you expand your range going higher, you want to blow a faster airstream because the higher notes require a fast airstream, the low notes require a slow airstream. So then I use my airstream demonstration and I go, here's a low note. And I talk about a high note, very intense fast air. Then I show that on the horn. So here's a low note. And I work my way up into the range of the instrument. And as you go higher, you increase the intensity and you increase the focus. If you're really carefully focused on the buzz spot, you'll have much better technique and success with getting that high note. The third thing that I talk about is I like to say the most successful players, especially in the high range, will be able to hear the pitch and play the pitch properly. And when I do that, I like to demonstrate by playing a pitch in the low range, and then I hear the pitch. In fact, I'll even sometimes sing the pitch and see if I can play it in the high range. So for example, I'll do an F, to the high F, see if I can pop it out. Again, and one more. And then I like to go into the B flat because that's getting to be really a high challenging note on the instrument. So here's a B flat. And so I hear, and I say, let's see if I can pop that out 3 times. Okay. Then I like to expand just to demonstrate. I like to see if I can push my range even higher. So now I'll go to a C. So when I sing the pitch. So if you really concentrate and hear that pitch. Okay. And then if I feel pretty confident in my playing, or if I'm pretty well warmed up, I'll move up into a D. So here's a D. Okay, so I really focus carefully. And that usually makes a pretty good impression on the student to say, okay, now if I can really listen carefully, use my air, use that pulling the bottle and bin technique, it really helps to develop the high range. These are just a few of the techniques that I use, just a quick summary of some of the things that I talk about during my lessons. If you have some students that would be interested in doing more of this, I do have a Zoom account set up. You can contact me. My cell phone number is 605-360-1853. You can go ahead and call me or text me. Or my email is rlbeard, and that's BEAIRD 1963 @gmail.com. I'd be happy to work with any of you low brass students, see if we can get them to grow as a player and develop into some really good techniques. I've seen some tremendous students throughout my years of teaching, and they've had great success. Thank you.